Welcome to this video. My name is Konstantin. I'm providing market analysis to BeInCrypto for the last 5 years, and now we are also doing it on YouTube. Today we're gonna look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been in a little bit of a weird phase recently. We can definitely see Bitcoin is in a massive uptrend for quite a while now. Also, we can notice that the volatility has decreased since Bitcoin has matured further and also climbed up in price. Now we can definitely see that since we had a major all-time high previously above the 100,000 USD mark, we had a little bit of a correction towards the 74,000 USD mark. Ever since then, we had a massive uptrend for over 4 months, and only in August, the market started a small correction. But also in August, Bitcoin reached a new all-time high at 124,000 USD. So what I wanted to see for Bitcoin is that it reaches down to the next Fib support level. It hasn't fully reached it. It actually missed it by roughly 1.5%. Despite that, the MACD histogram has been ticking bearishly lower for the past 3 months, while the RSI has shown a massive bearish divergence. But the MACD lines remain bullishly crossed, and since last month, the Bitcoin price has started to recover already again. But the key question now is Bitcoin still in a correction phase, or are we still in a massive uptrend? Well, the truth is, we remain in a massive uptrend. For me, the main indicator to look at is the golden ratio support at around 57,000 USD. Also, the 50-month EMA support at 63,000 acts as another major support. So both of those levels are really critical to watch. So we can say between 55,000 USD and 57,000 plus 63,000 is the major support for Bitcoin. And as long as the Bitcoin price doesn't reach that level, it remains in a massive bull trend. So the bull trend remains intact. There's no bear market so far. Nonetheless, we do have entered a correction phase. So now we're gonna take a look at the weekly chart to get a better understanding what's happening right now. Because ever since we reached the new all-time high at about 124.5 thousand USD, Bitcoin entered a correction phase. It has retraced by roughly 14%. It hasn't reached the Fib support level we targeted, but it has started a recovery from there and reached exactly the golden ratio resistance at 118,000, surged by over 10%, by roughly 10%. Now, this is the critical level to end the correction phase we are currently in. Since Bitcoin has been rejected at that level, the correction phase remains bearishly intact. That means, although we are still in a massive bull trend, we are also in a mid or short-term correction phase. Now, from that level, Bitcoin retraced down once again to 108,600. And once again, it didn't reach the critical Fib support level. Now in this week, it starts to recover strongly once again. The weekly indicators give mixed signals, as we still have a golden crossover of the EMAs, which confirms the trend bullishly in the midterm, whereas the MACD lines remain bearishly crossed. The RSI moves in neutral regions, and the MACD histogram starts to tick bullishly higher this week after it ticked bearishly lower last week. So from the monthly to the weekly chart, we can conclude we are in a bull cycle, but we also in a correction phase. Now maybe we get a better understanding if we look at the daily chart. And if we look at the daily chart, we can see that Bitcoin is targeting the golden ratio resistance at 118,000 again. If it faces another bearish rejection, it could retrace down to the 0.382 Fib support at roughly 105,000 USD. Also at this level, the 200-day EMA acts as additional support. So this is the correction target if Bitcoin faces another bearish rejection. Should Bitcoin break the golden ratio resistance, however, it could retarget the all-time high at roughly 124,500 or even surpass it to reach a new all-time high. Now, the indicators are mostly bullish on the daily chart. We have MACD lines currently in the process of crossing bullishly. We have a upticking MACD histogram and we have a neutral RSI, while the EMAs still show a golden crossover, which confirms the trend bullishly in the short to midterm. So we can definitely see that Bitcoin just doesn't want to correct. It just doesn't want to go for this flash crash. Even though we had this massive bearish divergence in the monthly chart, which has been a very consistent indicator for massive drops, it only dropped so far like 14%, which in terms of Bitcoin volatility is basically nothing. That's why I'm saying volatility decreases, the market matures, and overall Bitcoin is just so massively bullish. Obviously, it has to do with what's happening in the world in general, with the monetary policies, how much money is printed. But I try to avoid all the news around it and just really focus on price action alone. So that's the picture for Bitcoin at the moment. We're going to see, does it face rejection again or does it break through? If it faces rejection, it's going to target the next support zones. On the 4-hourly chart, the EMAs have formed a death cross, but are about to form a golden crossover again, which would confirm the trend bullishly even in the short term. The MACD histogram starts to tick bullishly higher right now, while the RSI could potentially form a bearish divergence, but also could invalidate that by just searching straight away to the golden ratio resistance. MACD lines are still bullishly crossed, and overall Bitcoin is very, very bullish, but like I said, the correction phase remains intact as long as we don't break the golden ratio resistance right there at 118,000 USD. So basically that's what we're doing here on this channel. I will always provide potential reversal points, may it be supports or resistances. Now what we can also do, we can look at the Bitcoin dominance, because the Bitcoin dominance is a really good factor to look at for the alt season. And if we are honest, everyone has been very vocal about the alt season, which didn't really occur so far. So a lot of people getting nervous holding their bags of altcoins and they're just asking themselves, why is there no rally? Like in this cycle, we had a massive rally on meme coins, but there wasn't really a case on altcoins. I mean, we have some altcoins like Ripple and Solana that did pretty well, and now we have altcoins like Zcash that starts to perform better than it has been in the past. But overall, we didn't see the 10x returns we often saw in previous cycles. So now with the Bitcoin dominance, it actually has shifted into a correction phase, which is the ideal indicator we want to see for an alt season. So the previous 2 months, from July and August, we did have a major correction where it also dropped around 14%, but it also didn't really hit the key Fib support at the 50-month EMA. It also missed it by roughly 1.5 to 3%. And now it starts to recover slightly. Last month it recovered slightly. This month, well, we have the 1st of October. It shows signs of weakness, but it also could potentially go for a reversal. At this point, it's impossible to tell. MACD is definitely bearish on the monthly chart. RSI is neutral, and we could potentially see another downward movement of 5.5% or even 17%. Overall, to invalidate the ongoing correction phase that we are seeing right now, the Bitcoin dominance has to surpass 63%. So as long as that doesn't happen, I'm leaning bearish on the Bitcoin dominance, and that actually is pretty bullish for the altcoin market. We can also go for a deep dive on Ethereum, because I would say that Ethereum is a pretty important asset to look at when it comes to the alt season. Ethereum is still one of the biggest networks, and a lot of altcoins are based on Ethereum. Also, Ethereum has reached a new all-time high, which is another indicator for an alt season. But directly after that, instead of going for a proper new all-time high, it basically just touched the recent all-time high, surpassed it slightly, and went for a correction last month. Nonetheless, MACD remains bullishly on the monthly chart, RSI stays neutral, and we can take a better look at the weekly chart. Overall, ever since Ethereum has reached this critical support zone between 1,100 and 1,400, it has surged by 260% consistently. So that was a pretty strong uptrend over the last few months. But it has entered another correction phase basically in August. During that time, it has dropped by roughly 23%, but also here, it didn't reach the critical Fib support and is currently actually in the support zone between 4,100 and 4,400. So, should Ethereum now bounce off the support zone, it could potentially target this golden ratio resistance, which sits at roughly 4,550. Ethereum has to break this level bullishly in order to invalidate the ongoing correction phase, and then it could retarget the all-time high at roughly 4,956 and then potentially reach a new all-time high. When it comes to predicting new all-time highs, where we don't really have historical data, it is definitely very difficult to do so. And I would say so it's almost impossible. What we can do, we can look at the Fib projection level, which is around 5,800. This could be a potential resistance. And other than that, we can only look at the market cap and make a realistic assessment about the market cap. Well, with the market cap, we know we have limited growth potential. You can't potentially reach a market cap of one asset that surpasses all the other assets. So there is definitely a limiting factor in that. That's also why when people in crypto talk about massive growth or Dogecoin gonna hit 100 USD, whatever, yeah, just do the math. Is this even possible? Will Dogecoin have a higher market cap than the whole economy of the United States? Well, that's up to you to decide, but it is very important to always keep the market cap in mind, especially when it comes to growth potential. So now we're going to the daily chart. From the daily chart, we can see the last few days have been pretty bullish on Ethereum. We are on track to reach the critical golden ratio resistance. Like I said, if we break it, correction phase is invalidated. We can reach the all-time high or even reach a new all-time high potentially at the Fib projection level. Or we get phase rejection, we return to the support zone. If we break this support zone, the next bearish target would be at the Fib support at 3,585. Also, 200-day EMA acts as additional support at 3,435. So around this area, we definitely find strong support for Ethereum. And if both those levels break, the golden ratio acts as significant support zone at around 2,700. But other than that, the indicators are pretty bullish on the daily chart. We have an intact golden crossover of the EMAs, which confirms the trend bullishly in the short to mid-term. Also, we have an upticking MACD histogram. The MACD lines are about to cross bullishly and the RSI is neutral. So overall, looks pretty good, looks pretty bullish. But like I said, we have to break this critical golden ratio level to invalidate the correction phase. On the 4-hourly chart, RSI is pretty neutral, MACD is pretty bullish, but the EMAs have established a death cross, which confirms the trend bullishly in the short term. So this gives you a broad idea about where the market is currently at. And one more thing that we can look at is the total market cap. So when we look at the total market cap of crypto, we can see that it also reached a new all-time high in August and has then formed a massive bearish divergence in the RSI on the monthly chart. So in previous cycles, when we encountered a massive bearish divergence on the monthly RSI, that was a very strong indicator for heavy downward movement. Now with the current cycle, the altcoin market has only retraced down roughly 15% within 1 month in August and then quickly bounced. I would say that over the last 12 years I've been in the space, I've never seen the market being so bullish. Does it mean we will never see a massive crash again? I really don't think so. I think it's part of the cycles. But for now, I'm a little bit surprised that even though we have massive bearish signals on the monthly chart, we don't really see massive down movements. It's quite the opposite. We see very fast recoveries. And when we look at the total market cap right now, yeah, the crypto market has entered a correction phase and is about to invalidate that correction phase. The crypto market, contrast to Bitcoin and Ethereum, has reached the 0.382 Fib support, bounced off bullishly, reached exactly the golden ratio resistance, which needs to be broken to invalidate the correction phase, has retraced once again to the Fib support at roughly 3.7 billion USD, and now is on track to reach the golden ratio resistance at 4 billion again. Trillion in that case. So if the market breaks the 4 trillion USD mark, then it could potentially reach the all-time high at 4.17 trillion USD. It could even surpass that level. And we have a similar option here to just look at the Fib projection level. So we could reach a new all-time high at roughly 4.6 trillion USD. But like I said, predicting those levels without historical data is very inaccurate. It's basically the only thing that we can do other than looking at the market cap. But to focus once again on the current setup, we are in a correction phase. Correction was very mild. The crypto market is about to end this correction phase and head towards a new all-time high. Indicators on a weekly chart are a little bit mixed. We have intact golden crossover of DMAs, which confirms the trend bullishly in the midterm. The RSI is pretty neutral, soon reaching over bought regions, and the MACD histogram is ticking bearishly lower for 3 weeks now, and the MACD lines are about to cross bearishly So overall, they're pretty mixed indicators on the weekly chart. On the daily chart, EMAs are bullishly crossed, confirms the trend in the short to medium term. MACD lines are about to cross bullishly. MACD histogram is ticking bullishly higher and the RSI is neutral. So it looks pretty bullish here. Also that it bounced off the support. Like we could potentially see a back and forth between those Fib levels. And if this Fib level at 3.7 breaks, the market could retrace to the 200-day EMA where it finds multiple Fib support levels at roughly 3.4 billion, 3.5 billion trillion USD. And then if all those levels break, it could potentially return to the major support zone here at roughly 3 trillion USD. So yeah, that's it for now. We looked at Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin dominance, and the total crypto market cap. I hope this gives you a broad idea. We're gonna do this weekly, and we're gonna assess the market on a weekly basis for whatever coin is of interest. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it or you have questions, please feel free to ask any questions in the comments. I'm very happy to answer any questions. If this is too technical to you, we can also do more educational content about chart analysis in general. Just let us know, and also don't forget to like that video if you enjoyed this video and drop a subscription so we'll never miss a video again. My name is Konstantin. It was a pleasure to host you. See you next time.
That's all.